Sun Tzu would have dismissed you from his ranks for your last Instagram story, not for the content, for the transparency. In The Art of War, he wrote it 2,500 years ago, and it still applies. All warfare is based on deception, not manipulation, not dishonesty. Strategic self-protection, the deliberate management of what the world can see and what stays in the dark until you are ready to use it. You've been doing the opposite, posting the plan, announcing the goals, sharing the vision. And every time you do, you hand every person in that room and in that comment section the intelligence they need to undermine you before you've built anything worth defending. You're not a failure. You've just been fighting with your hand opened. By the end of this, you'll have the exact psychological framework Sun Tzu used to dominate armies 10 times his size without revealing a single intention, until it was already too late for anyone to stop him. And I'll give you a 7-day assignment that will either make you the most strategically powerful person in your circle, or prove you're addicted to social approval. We'll see which one it is. I'll also show you how a small island in Italy used one secret to hold a global monopoly for 400 years, and how you're doing the exact opposite every single day. But first, you need to understand what's being stolen from you every time you open your mouth. In 2009, psychologist Peter Gollwitzer at New York University ran a series of experiments in his landmark study When Intentions Go Public that should permanently change how you think about sharing your goals. He gave participants personal objectives. Some announced their intentions publicly, others kept them entirely private. Then he measured which group actually finished. The people who announced felt more satisfied immediately before doing a single unit of work, and were significantly less likely to follow through. Read that again. The announcement created the feeling of progress. The brain doesn't know the difference between declaring a goal and achieving one. When someone nods across the table and says, "That sounds incredible," your neurology registers social approval as partial completion. Dopamine releases, drive reduces. The fire that was supposed to fuel months of work gets spent in a 10-minute conversation over coffee. This is not a character defect. This is your wiring being exploited in real time. Nobel laureate Daniel Kahneman understood this cognitive bias decades before social media weaponized it against us. Most people leak their power through their mouth before they ever spend it through their hands. You've done it. You announced the business idea before the first client. You described the body you were building before the first workout. You explained the creative project to 12 people who didn't need to know, felt the electric rush of their enthusiasm, and then watched that rush slowly bleed out over the weeks that followed as the actual work became harder than the conversation. The announcement was the achievement. The work became optional. You now understand the biology of your failure. That's level 1. But understanding why you leak power is useless if you don't know how to weaponize the strategic silence that's left. That's where Sun Tzu comes back in. Stop. Right now. Look at your phone. Look at your notes app, your to-do list, the project you were excited about 3 months ago. How many of those did you tell someone about before they existed? Every one of those is now a ghost. You're running on empty and wondering why you can't finish. Sun Tzu understood this as a military problem before psychology had the language to name it. He outlined 12 methods of deception in The Art of War. Not deception in the moral sense, but information management as a form of combat. Appear weak when you are strong, feign incapacity when fully capable, move when the enemy is certain you will not. Most people read those and think ancient China, battlefield, not relevant. Wrong. Appear incapable when capable is not weakness, it is weaponized invisibility. While your competitors broadcast their strategies on social media, announce their timelines, update their followers with every incremental step, you are already 3 moves ahead, building toward a result that will arrive without warning and cannot be prepared for. They cannot counter what they don't know is happening, but there is a layer here that the Gollwitzer research doesn't touch. The damage of premature disclosure isn't only internal. It isn't only your own drive dying in the announcement. There is a social cost that is more insidious than simple psychology. When you broadcast your ambitions, you don't just rob yourself of drive, you invite interference from people who benefit from your stagnation. Your growth threatens people, not because they are malicious, but because your success is a mirror they aren't ready to look into. The colleague who raises a careful question about your new direction. The family member who lists every person who tried something similar and failed. The friend who texts you a news article about how difficult your industry is, completely unprompted, the week after you told them what you were working on. Your circle isn't conspiring against you. They're just reacting to the mirror you're holding up. Every doubt they hand you is a weight you didn't need to carry. Watch their eyes next time you share a win. There is a flicker of calculation before the smile hits their face. They aren't happy for you. They are measuring the distance between you and them, and they are wondering how to close it. That half second before the congratulations arrives is the most honest moment in the relationship. That is the mask slipping. Why would you keep handing them that information? When you announce a goal before it has mass, before it has results, before it has proof, you present a seedling to a room full of people who would unconsciously prefer it didn't grow. You invite their doubt before you have anything real to defend it with. And here is what makes this lethal. Talking forces you to spend psychological energy defending the goal rather than building it. Every time you explain yourself to a skeptic, every time you respond to doubt with justification, you are using fuel that was supposed to go into the work. Strategic silence is not social cowardice. It is keeping your ammunition until you need it. The Harvard Business Review published branding research showing 60% of consumers prefer the familiar, the known quantity, the established presence. But here is the part most people miss. Mystery amplifies attraction. Enigmatic figures draw more attention than transparent ones, not because observers know more about them, but because they know less. The gap pulls. People move toward what they cannot fully read, trying to close the distance. The mind is drawn to the incomplete. It cannot let go of the unresolved. Think about the figures who hold your attention, the ones you keep returning to, keep analyzing, keep following. Almost never the ones who have explained everything about themselves. The ones who have given you just enough to generate curiosity and withheld just enough to keep you coming back. People call it being real. In reality, it's just handing your enemy a map. You've been told that openness builds trust. In intimate relationships, in therapy, in real friendship, that's true. In competition, in any environment where resources are finite and others want what you're working toward, openness is broadcasting your current position to everyone competing for the same ground. The general who sends his battle plan to the enemy before the war begins is not being authentic. He is losing before the first arrow flies. You are that general. Every coffee chat where you explain what you're building is a leaked memo. Every social media update is a position report handed directly to your opponents. But simply closing your mouth isn't enough to win the war. This is where most advice stops. It gives you the foundation and mistakes it for the complete structure. Staying quiet is not the strategy. Staying quiet is the precondition. A man who simply stops talking has created a void. A void is not power. It is empty space, and people will fill it with their own projections if you give them nothing deliberate to work with. Silence is the foundation. What you project into that silence is the weapon. Strategic silence is not absence. This is the line between a man who doesn't speak because he has nothing to say, and a man who doesn't speak because he has decided not to give you the satisfaction of knowing what he thinks. One is empty. One is a fortress with no visible door. Economists have documented what they call the mystery premium. When full information is withheld, perceived value rises. Wine in an unlabeled bottle is rated higher by consumers who know only that it commands a high price. Art with a hidden history sells for more at auction because the gap invites projection, and what people project onto you always exceeds what you would have disclosed. The more you reveal, the less interesting you become. When you lay out your entire blueprint, your plan, your timeline, your fears, your process, you become a known quantity. Predictable, fully mapped. And fully mapped is the end of influence. There is a difference between someone who makes you lean forward and someone who makes you feel you've already heard everything they have to say. Sun Tzu put it plainly: be so subtle that you are invisible. Be so mysterious that you are intangible. Then you will control your rival's fate. Power comes from knowing what they don't. Every time you announce a strategy in advance, you close that gap. You let them build their response before you've deployed your offense. This isn't a modern theory. It is the hidden history of the families who actually owned the world. Florence in the 15th century was a shark tank. In that world, just staying alive was a victory. Niccolo Machiavelli eventually put it into language in The Prince. Everyone sees what you appear to be. Few experience what you really are. The man who reveals his strategy at the dinner table loses before morning. The Medici didn't become the most powerful banking family in Europe by explaining their financial movements to rivals. They built their position through selective disclosure, sharing exactly enough to appear cooperative and withholding exactly enough to stay ahead. Their competitors believed they understood the Medici. They never did, and by the time they realized it, the position was already irreversible. The most dangerous men in the Renaissance were not the ones who wore their intentions openly. They were the ones who made you believe you understood them while revealing almost nothing. This is still operational. It works the same way now as it did in 1492. Marcus Aurelius understood it centuries before Machiavelli. The wise man speaks only when silence is no longer profitable. This principle of strategic restraint is the foundation of Stoicism itself. Now, before I give you the 3 moves, I need to stop and say something directly. Most of you are already looking for the share button to send this video to a friend. If you do that, you've already failed. You are proving you value the feeling of being smart over the power of being silent. If you can't even keep this video to yourself, the next 3 moves will be useless to you. What I'm about to give you is not self-improvement. It is social warfare. If you aren't prepared to be viewed as cold, distant, or even arrogant by the mediocre people in your life, stop this video now, because the moment you stop performing openness for people who don't deserve it, they will notice, and they will not like it. That is the cost. It is worth it. Here are the 3 forbidden habits of the elite, the ones they practice but never talk about. The first one is the hardest because it goes against everything social media has trained you to do. Stop announcing. Let results arrive without warning. There is a specific kind of power in showing up with the thing already done. No timeline shared, no progress update, no preview given. You simply appear with the result. The business launched, the book finished, the deal closed. The surprise carries a message that no announcement ever could. It says, "I moved while you were watching somewhere else." The gap between where you thought I was and where I actually am is larger than you calculated. Whatever you assumed about my pace or my direction, you assumed wrong. That gap travels with you into every room afterward. Imagine 2 people working toward identical goals. One posts consistent updates, the struggle, the milestones, the setbacks. The other posts nothing, then appears, finished. Whose result lands with more force? The second person's result is an event. The first is just the final entry in a story everyone already knew. Stop writing the story in advance. Let the ending arrive as a detonation. But there is a move between the first habit and the second that almost nobody talks about, because it sounds dishonest until you understand how it actually works. The decoy. Sun Tzu didn't just go silent. He showed the enemy a fake plan. If you disappear completely, people notice. Silence with no explanation makes people suspicious. It draws attention to the absence, and attention is exactly what you are trying to avoid. The elite don't just stop talking. They redirect attention to something harmless. They mention a side project, a hobby, something minor, something real enough to be credible, something that has nothing to do with what actually matters. They give the people around them just enough to feel included. A decoy that satisfies the social demand for information without revealing anything of value. While everyone is watching the decoy, the real work happens in total darkness. This is not lying. It is misdirection, a controlled leak. You are choosing exactly what gets seen, and that choice is the power. Sun Tzu called it making noise in the east while attacking in the west. Keep their eyes on the wrong thing and they will never know what hit them. The second forbidden habit is the one almost nobody practices, because it requires suppressing the impulse most people mistake for confidence. Ask instead of answer. Listen instead of speak. The one who listens owns the room. The one who talks is just giving away the map. Most people enter conversations looking to demonstrate, to prove their knowledge, establish their value through what they know. The strategically silent do something different. They ask questions, precise, seemingly curious questions. And while the other person talks, while they explain their position and disclose their thinking, the listener is doing something invisible, gathering intelligence. What does this person value? What are they not saying directly? Where is the gap between their stated position and their actual one? By the time the conversation ends, the listener has the intelligence. The speaker has the feeling they were understood. Those are not equivalent outcomes. Aristotle identified this in rhetoric. The person who gets others talking about themselves activates liking, trust, and openness at the same time. You learn everything. You give away nothing. Sun Tzu was explicit. Know the enemy and know yourself. In 100 battles, you will never be in peril. The intelligence is the advantage, and the intelligence comes from listening, not performing. Ask more, answer less. The third forbidden habit sounds like nothing until you try it. Reveal less than you know in every conversation, permanently. In your area, your work, your field, resist the reflex to demonstrate the full extent of what you know. Give them 70%, leave 30% in the dark. Not as manipulation, as discipline. The 30% you withhold becomes your shadow. And the shadow is what people talk about when they're trying to figure you out. He knows more than he lets on. There's something she sees that I can't quite read. These observations are not accidents. They are the direct result of deliberate restraint, of giving people almost enough and letting their own minds do the final work. Share outcomes, not process. Share results, not the blueprint. Let them see where you arrived. Never show them the road that got you there. The road is replicable. The outcome, appearing fully formed without explanation, creates an impression of capacity that cannot be reverse engineered. This is the secret the Venetian glassmakers of Murano held for 4 centuries. A small island in the Venetian lagoon maintained a monopoly on the finest glassmaking in the world. Not through luck, not through talent alone, through radical information control. In 1291, the Republic of Venice issued a decree. All glassmaking would move to Murano. The craftsmen were relocated to the island by law. They were given titles of nobility. Their daughters could marry into Venetian aristocracy. They were celebrated, elevated, treated as the most valued craftsmen in the known world. This was the golden cage. The Republic of Venice gave them everything they could want inside the island, so they would never need to leave. Because the moment one of them left, the moment one of them talked, the monopoly was gone. The penalty for revealing the process, they were erased. Names stripped, families removed, as if they never existed. Not one significant trade secret leaked for 400 years. The process was never disclosed. The result was always displayed, and the product commanded prices that open competition could never have sustained. Process disclosed is a commodity. Process concealed is a premium. The Murano glassmakers didn't hide because they were ashamed of their methods. They protected the process because they understood that the method was the power. The moment it became common knowledge, it became worthless. Share the result. Protect the method. Now the loop closes. Talking kills because it spends power before it has been earned, on social validation that evaporates within hours. Silence is not the absence of power. Silence is where power accumulates before it detonates. The man who has spoken everything has nothing in reserve. He is, to everyone who has spoken with him, a fully known quantity. And fully known is the death of influence. The man who has revealed carefully and selectively holds something more valuable than any single disclosure. They always feel like you have one more card to play. That feeling never leaves the room. It works on people long after the conversation ends. And that is leverage. Sun Tzu moved armies into terrain that terrified his own generals, into fog, into positions that looked like traps. His enemies could not read him, could not predict him, could not build a defense against what they could not see coming. He didn't need to be the largest force. He needed to be the most unreadable one. You don't need to be the most talented person in the room. You need to be the least fully understood. Your silence is not weakness. It is the only currency that compounds without being stolen. Every announcement is a withdrawal. Every goal you explain before it exists is power converted into social approval and spent before it became anything real. There is a reason the most studied military strategist in human history left almost no record of his personal life. We know Sun Tzu through what he wrote about strategy, not through what others recorded about his movements, his habits, his plans. He understood, at a level most people never reach, that the man who controls what is known about him controls how he can be countered. He was not hiding. He was preserving his options. Here is your assignment. Not a concept, an action. For the next 7 days, announce nothing. Pick one goal, one thing you are building or working toward, and let it live entirely in the dark. No updates, no hints, no excitement shared. Watch what happens to your energy when the only validation available is the work itself. Most people discover something unsettling. The announcement was a crutch, and once you kick it away, you find out very quickly whether you can actually walk. Most people who hear this will nod. Then they'll pick up their phone and tell someone what they're planning. You won't, because you now understand what Sun Tzu understood 2,500 years before any of this had language around it. The man whose hand is never shown cannot be beaten by anyone who hasn't seen it. If you want to go deeper into the mechanics of strategic dominance, how the most powerful figures in history built influence without ever asking for it or announcing their intentions, the next video is waiting. Watch it before you talk about watching it. The framework is built. The only variable left is whether you use it or go explain it to someone who wasn't asking.